Hello, I am Sara Richardson, owner and founder of Myo-Fit Mobility Therapy. From 2013 to 2014, I had been working as an independent contractor for an Indianapolis wellness company providing athletic training services to physically active adults. Partway through 2014, I decided to branch out on my own. I saw a gap in the market that athletic trainers could fill and fill well. Since then, I have not looked back. I have been learning and trying to become a good employer and business owner, and a lot of times I am learning on the fly. I don't want other athletic trainers to have to feel alone in this adventure. I know I have felt alone a lot of times in this 6-year journey, and I want to be a voice of support for you and share some tips and tricks I have learned along the way. I have been extremely satisfied with my professional career through the ups and downs of owning a business. During this presentation, I want to provide you with some insight in what it takes personally, as well as considerations to take when forming your business plan and business. We will cover market research, legal, financial, marketing and advertising, and healthcare considerations. Some quick disclosures. I'm a business owner, like I mentioned. We provide athletic training services, mainly to the adult athlete. I'm also an independent contractor with the Clark Group and Associates, which allows me to provide this presentation to you today. I have no conflicts of interest. This is an overview of the topics we will cover. It might seem like a short list, but there are a lot of details in each of these topics. As an athletic trainer, we are not well versed in the business side of life, and I want to help you begin to get an understanding of what it looks like to be involved in the business side of work. I am taking these topics and making it relatable to you, the athletic trainer entrepreneur. You basically will come away with the details of how to form a business plan. First up is market research. As a thought begins to form in your mind that you want to branch out and start your own business, market research is one of the first steps to consider. I'm going to answer 7 questions in this topic. What type of business do I want to run? What should I name my business? Who is my target market? What does the State Practice Act say in the state that I live in? Is this possible in my geographical area? What should I charge? And who are my competitors? What type of business do you see yourself running? Do you see yourself as being the sole owner of this business, or would you like a partner or two? If you have 1 or 2 partners, are they fellow athletic trainers or other healthcare professionals? I would recommend, whoever they are, discuss strengths and weaknesses of everyone and find out what roles and responsibilities each of you will have. This is a very important step, as well as deciding how decisions will be made, how often owner meetings should take place, and if and when roles can and should overlap. If it is going to be just yourself as the owner, you can still create standards of when you will meet with yourself about owner responsibilities. You will learn about some of them today. If you are going the partner route, I would recommend an attorney forming a legal agreement and legal relationship other than what is filed with the Secretary of State as a protection for everyone. Details will be defined in this agreement and then signed on. Before we go any further, you will hear me mention several times today that finding and having a good attorney and accountant is very important to your success. Yes, you can do this on your own, use LegalZoom, and use online budgeting tools, forms, and tax accountants, but having someone you trust that believes in you and has your best success and interest in your company from a legal and financial aspect is important. Remember, an attorney is always going to give you some legal extremes, and the accountant is going to provide a financial extremes. It is up to you to make the final decisions and how that will play out in your business. Another consideration is a business mentor or coach. Someone who has done this before, has knowledge about marketing, advertising, goal setting, and can just be an ear to you can be very helpful. Next, do you want employees and/or independent contractors? The defining difference of an employee versus an independent contractor is the right to control what will be done and how it will be done. An employer has a legal right to tell an employee to show up at work at certain times and provide care in a certain manner. The independent contractor is paid to do a job. A lot of surgeons are independent contractors. They are paid to perform certain surgeries, not how it will be done and what will be done, just the fact that it will be done. Independent contractors are considered self-employed and therefore subject to self-employment tax. The payer pays them an agreed upon amount, and the independent contractor is responsible for all the taxes. Where an employer will pay local, state, federal unemployment and Social Security taxes for the employee, you also need to consider if you're going to have employees, will you provide benefits for them? Health, retirement, and PTO are just a few options. You are not required unless your business is a certain size. How might you pay your employees versus your independent contractors? Hourly, salary, commission? There are pros and cons to all of these options. Once you've considered partners or not, and independent contractors or employees or not, where are you going to perform your services? What are the pros and cons of working out of your home? Maybe low overhead, but do you live in an area that is conducive to people coming and going in your house or apartment or neighborhood? Are you legally allowed to do it? Do you have space in your home for it? What about at a clinic? You can possibly have a storefront or sign, a waiting room, a clean space, ADA accessibility, and more. This will probably make you feel official. This might also allow for future business growth at a faster rate depending on the size of your clinic versus your home. Are you going to be a mobile service and travel to your client? Maybe that is at a place of business, at a sporting facility, school, or at the client's home. This can be very effective in your geographical area if it can be condensed and efficient, or you could be driving all over the place and maybe not be as efficient. You also would need to consider if you have a reliable vehicle and a mobile setup of supplies that can be easily transported. The good news is that you don't have to be stuck with any of these except if you sign a long lease or buy a building. If you think one sounds perfect and you try it and then realize it's not what you thought, you can try another one. Take your time to think this through and speak with some mentors, whether in the profession or in the business world, to get an idea of what might work. In the end, I encourage you to make your own decision and not just one that they recommend. You need to believe in your decision and be confident in it. Naming your business. This is a fun process. I remember brainstorming, looking up synonyms, writing on a yellow legal pad, and talking it over with others. Once you have a name, or you have an idea of the name, does it make sense in your setting? Are you doing concussion education and the name might sound like a food company or a fitness company? Let's use an example of some things. Let's think of the company of Impact. We know that they do concussions. That's why I use concussion education. So to the lay person, or the person trying to find your business, does Impact direct them to head and concussions? Or are the terms too profession specific that it's confusing to them? How do you get a concussion? Well, an impact or collision occurs. So to me, impact is a good example because it's not too medical sounding and it fits the specialty in the setting. Is the name too similar to another name in the same industry or in a different industry? Let's say you think that you want your concussion education company to be Impact Healing. My guess is that that would be too similar and could cause some legal issues to the company, to the Impact company that we know of that does concussion testing. Or maybe you use the company you say, okay, let's name it Heads and Shoulders. That sounds like concussion. Well, my guess is that's probably too similar to the shampoo brand of Head and Shoulders. So that probably won't work. So you can also search some databases. You probably have a database on your state's website in their business section that you can search under the Secretary of State. You can search different names. I would also recommend just Googling the name. Maybe there's another business that has the same name, but completely in a different industry. But maybe that's okay with you, maybe not. You can also look at trademark and copyright information to ensure that the name you're going to choose is safe. But I just want to say that it's all in the name. Next, who is your target market? Who is your desired audience? Who are the people you're trying to reach and provide services? This will help determine what type of building setting you might have, what types of services you can offer, and how the flow of the business will run. Are you already starting to understand why people might get MBAs? Being an entrepreneur is rewarding, but the effort, dedication, decisions, and preparation can make your endeavor successful and rewarding. Or if you're putting in a little effort, little dedication, and little thought into your decisions, maybe your endeavor may not be so successful. So think about those personal attributes as you consider starting a business. I hate to be blunt, but that's the blunt reality is if you don't think you have the time, dedication, passion, it might make the business a little harder to be successful. I want to encourage you to continue to follow along with this presentation because I'm going to keep walking you through the steps to consider to make your dream and your passion a reality. And these are all things that I wish I knew as I was starting my business 6 years ago. This is extremely useful material. This is a very crucial step. What does your state practice act, if you have one, allow you to do as an athletic trainer and under what type of supervision? Does your business plan fit within the state code? I will highly recommend finding an attorney who is experienced in medical law in your state to determine if the business idea that you have can and will work within the confines of the state code. If it does not, can you alter the business idea so it will comply? I would recommend not starting anything until you can form a relationship with a physician, as well as having a conversation with an attorney about how the relationship should legally work and be formed with a physician. I also recommend having a legal document, such as a standard operating procedure, that clarifies the relationship and purpose with that doctor. Even if your state does not require a standard operating procedure, I believe that it is a representation of best practices to do so. This will clearly define what the physician knows about you, meaning the company, and allows you to treat, when to refer, and more. As you continue to form your business plan and gather information and make decisions, this is another very important step. If you are wanting to have this concussion education company, but you live in a county or area with a low population in general, but maybe a high geriatric population, this may not be an ideal location for that concussion company. That's just an example, but consider demographics of where you live and work as you consider starting your business. Pricing. I want you to consider your value. How many years of experience do you have? What level of a degree do you hold? What are other people your age, experience level, and degree level earn per year on average, regardless of their profession? How much money do you want to make? These are all intangibles that create value. You are worth more than you think as athletic trainers or healthcare professionals who hold at minimum a bachelor's degree, and many of us hold a master's degree or higher. We have gone through a credentialed program, are nationally certified, and if your state has licensure, you're licensed to work as the professional that you are. A lot of work has gone into our profession. So do you think we have little value? Absolutely not. I believe we know our value. And with your business, you get to create it. The prices is not just set on your value, but that is a factor to consider. The prices you set should come from your value, the rate or pricing that makes sense in your area, as well as your overhead costs. What are the rates of similar prices in your area? Of similar services in your area? If you aren't sure what services to compare with, consider massage therapy rates, chiropractor rates, physical therapy out-of-pocket rates, and if there are other athletic training rates in your area. If there's nothing like you in your area, try to find it nationally and try to be somewhere comparable with that. You probably don't want to necessarily be on the bottom or at the top. So try to find a comfortable spot. You should also consider the expenses and potential profits when selecting rates or prices. If you set something too low, you may not even be able to afford your expenses or overhead costs, let alone make a profit. One other aspect to consider is raising your rates and prices at regular intervals. I had to learn this the hard way, and I did not raise my rates right away. And I finally raised my rates 5 years into the business. Everything went fine and smooth, but if I raise my rates every year, there might be a difference in the financial profit of the company. So just increasing your rates allows for more revenue to be generated, and it can help keep you in sync with inflation. Who are your potential competitors? This may not be a fun aspect to think about, but it is important to identify them. Maybe you're struggling to identify the competitors on your own. So I would find a person that you trust outside of our profession, explain the profession and what you want to do, and kind of see who they might think are your competitors. Explain briefly what the business is and see if they can help. This might help identify additional businesses that you didn't think of, even if you already identified some competitors. Then I would recommend go and speak with potential competitors and build a relationship with them. I say potential competitors because maybe you end up referring businesses to each other and work together in some way, shape, or form. Or maybe you find that they're exactly the same as you. But that's when you keep your friends close and your competitors closer. The competitor does not and should not be an enemy. Competition helps the economy and should help both your businesses grow, because either more people can be reached and cared for, or the competition creates growth in services in terms of expansion, hiring new employees, and more. I hope you have a better understanding of what is involved in market research. These are all aspects that I wish I had a presentation like this or a book to follow along that could help direct my desire as I was starting to start my company. So let's take a look at the next section of legal considerations. Legal, to me at first, sounded like an intimidating term, but like a lot of things that might seem intimidating, it's just because they're unknown. So as I did my research and relied on my attorney or things like that, I did become more comfortable with the legal aspect of things. So this list of considerations, I believe, will become the spine of your company. It will help protect your company. And I feel like it kind of makes you like a legitimate company if you have these things, and it just feels good. And you know that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. So here's what we're going to cover in this section. Business structure. So what type of company to form. Insurance, malpractice insurance, and business and general liability insurance. Your employer identification number, consent to treat forms, standard operating procedures, handbook, and a building lease or building purchase. There are different type of companies that can be formed: a limited liability company, sole proprietorship, or partnerships are among the most common with small businesses. There will be a right fit for you. Once you decide what that fit is, you will need to file a form through the Secretary of State as a business. It's simple, easy, and pretty inexpensive. An LLC, or a limited liability company, protects your belongings, your personal belongings, from your business property and business belongings. However, profit and loss of the business trickles down to you, and you face tax responsibility on the business, because if you own an LLC, you are considered self-employed and will face self-employment taxes. You can have multiple owners who are members in an LLC. Sole proprietorships. Sole proprietorships do not protect you from your personal belongings. If you think your business is low risk, then a sole proprietorship might be a good choice. It is hard to get lending from your business if you are a sole proprietor. Partnerships. There are two main kinds of partnerships: a limited partnership and a limited liability partnership. This is an option for a business with 2 or more people as owners. The limited partnership has one general partner who has unlimited liability, and then other partners who have limited control and liability. All parties involved pay self-employment tax. A limited liability partnership is like a limited partnership, but everyone has limited liability, and each person is responsible for their own debts and actions, but not the other owners. Everyone in this partnership is also subject to self-employment tax. You also have a C Corp, or C Corporation. This is an entity that is separate from the owners. It can make a profit, pay taxes, and is held legally liable. Unlike the other structures that we have discussed, corporations pay income tax on their profits. Then you also have an S Corp, or an S Corporation. Owners can become an employee of the company, and they are not subject to self-employment tax because they become an employee. However, in an S Corp, the profit and losses of the company are passed through to the owner directly. In terms of deciding what type, this is a conversation that I personally had with my accountant and my attorney to see what was best for me. Insurance. Now, you can think of insurance as an expense that you never use, but to me, that's the purpose of insurance. It's there when you need it, so you must have it. That's the best mindset that I take when it comes for insurance. It's just like it's just part of life, death, taxes, and insurance. you need that. So we probably know what malpractice insurance is, but you might not, depending on your current job setting, carry your own. Your employer might carry it for you. If you don't carry your own and you're going to start a business, this is a must. You need malpractice protection. It's really not that expensive, especially for the amount of coverage you can get. And there are a lot of options available for us out there. So I would just recommend starting with what the NATA recommends, and you can go from there. Business insurance. Business insurance or general liability insurance are very similar. They might be synonymous. I am not sure exactly. They definitely overlap a lot. But it covers things from bodily damage, property damage, to personal injury while on the job, and as well as if you have employees and things like that, it will also cover workman's comp. Some malpractice insurance companies also have business insurance policies, so this is something that you could look into to see if you can get a bundled deal. excuse me, I needed a drink. Your EIN, your employer identification number. Once you get approved to become a company in your state through the Secretary of State, excuse me, you are a business owner. Congratulations. In order to pay taxes, which we all have to do, hire employees, or open a business bank account, you need to obtain an EIN. This is basically your business's social security number. You can learn more on the IRS website, and it's really a very simple process. Another legal consideration to consider is a consent to treat form. Before you begin any treatment, you should have your patient sign a consent to treat form. You probably know what one is, but this is a form explaining who you are, what you're going to do, that HIPAA applies to our profession, and treatment service appointments. And if you plan on using any social media and clients in your social media, you should consider adding a social media clause, as well as any other policies and procedures that your patient needs to know before you begin treatment, such as like a cancellation policy or something. Before you create this, I guess if you use LegalZoom, that's fine, but I would consult with an attorney to make sure that it applies to your business model, that it applies in your state, to ensure proper legal standards. A standard operating procedure might not be a requirement for your State Practice Act, but I strongly suggest that you create a standard operating procedures document. Like I also said, I believe it is an example of best business practices and best practices within our profession to do so. Also, the doctor that you work with might want a standard operating procedure anyways. This will include topics such as types of conditions and injuries treated, how you would treat them, when you refer, and the type of working relationship that you will have with the doctor. You should always have, after you've created one, make sure that the physician or doctor signs off and approves your standard operating procedure document. If you need help creating one, there should be examples of one online. If your state does require one, then make sure that the examples that you find online are compliant with your state. Handbook. I believe it's not necessarily a requirement to have a handbook, but I believe, in my opinion, it is a requirement. You should definitely have one, even if it's just for yourself. It's a good way to fall back on your mission statement and your vision statement and why you started the company and the philosophy and things. But if you're going to hire one, this is a good place to write down how the company is going to function. Like I said, things to consider would be an introduction, your mission and vision statements, company philosophy, your treatment approach, human resources, including benefits, pay rate, continuing education, marketing and advertising, policies and procedures about opening and closing, sexual harassment policies, workplace dating policies, a dress code, things like that. Discuss OSHA, and just other things like that. There's just a lot of things to include in the handbook. This again is something, some payroll companies will offer handbook making tools, but if not, the first one I just made from scratch, but I did have an attorney look it over because there are federal and state requirements, especially if you're having employees that that need to be put in there. I honestly believe most recently there was something that was updated about COVID-19. And so that's just an example of things that an attorney might know or be more up to date on those policies and guidelines than we are. Another thing to discuss, the last thing to discuss is a lease or a mortgage. If it's in your business plan to decide to lease an office space or purchase a building, this isn't necessarily my expertise, but I will give you a brief overview and some advice. In my opinion, this is another situation to involve your attorney or someone else, a real estate agent or someone who is experienced in this manner. For a lease, make sure you're paying a fair price and know what your responsibilities are as the leasee. Try to find the price per square foot for commercial buildings in your area to see if what's being offered to you is in the ballpark. I once read somewhere that no more than 10% of your revenue should go towards your lease. If you are considering to purchase a building, there will be a lot of steps and paperwork involved. I just bought a house, and so I'm sure it's very similar. So I understand that there are a lot of things to sign and steps to do. Be patient if you are trying to find a building. Maybe you end up building a building, but find a commercial real estate agent that's experienced. And the other thing to consider is once you find a place that you're going to be, this is where the business insurance and general liability insurance come into play. And a lot of agreements, rental agreements, and purchase agreements require that you will need commercial insurance. And maybe if you own a building, there might be additional insurance coverage than just in a commercial lease. But again, like I said, not my expertise, but those are things that I've definitely learned. The other advice I will give is to read and review all the paperwork and lease agreements. And if you aren't sure, find an attorney or your attorney and consult with them for further clarification. Next, we have financial considerations. This is the money section. Disclaimer, I am not an accountant or financial expert, but I can share my experiences and things that I've learned and provide some recommendations in these areas. So we will cover funding, opening a business bank account, accounting, budget, payment collection methods, and paying yourself or income payments. Funding. How do you want to cover the startup expenses of your business? You may have already thought about that by now, but most considerations mentioned so far cost money. But that's part of business, money, making money, paying people, and spending money. I hope that you find the equation, the money equation that profits you. But back to funding. There are three main options to secure startup funds. One is self-funding. Personally, I chose this route. I did my research on what costs and expenses I was going to incur and saved up and then started the business. You can also have investors invest in your business. If you don't have the time or money to save, you can decide to have investors. With investors, you typically find people who are willing to provide a certain amount of funds to the business, and depending upon the type of agreement, you will give them a percentage of ownership in the company, equity in the company, or it might kind of look like a loan. The investors will also require repayment of their investment with a return on investment of typically around 20%. However, it might be as high as 40% if they believe it is risky. There are different ways to repay investors. You can pay them on a straight schedule. They can be paid back based on their ownership percentage, or they can be paid back at a preferred rate of return. The other option is a loan. You can get loans from a bank or other financial institutions, or maybe a family member that is willing to help out and give you a nice interest rate. If you want a loan from a bank or financial institution, you need to have an EIN, and which, if you are a sole proprietor, I believe you cannot have an EIN, so that might be harder to obtain a business loan if that helps you decide which type of business formation you would like to have. But bottom line, it costs money to start a business, and you need to decide which option is best for you. After you form your company with the state and obtain your EIN, you can now open a business bank account. This will help keep your business revenue separate from your personal income and personal bank account. This helps for accounting and tax purposes, and it just gives you a clean view of the transactions. You can also get a business line of credit and a business credit card. The line of credit can be useful in certain situations, and the credit card might offer cash back, so you can get paid for transactions you make in a way. Accounting. I will recommend finding an accountant that you like and trust to help you with your finances and taxes. Accountants are the numbers expert. I spend a lot of time consulting with my accountant on different topics, but it always has to do with money, profit, interpreting data from the business, taxes, budgeting, expenses, and more. They will help you learn a lot of terms and provide advice to ensure the success of your business. I know the difference between revenue and income, and I still find myself interchanging the terms, even though they are different, and profit. And, they're all very similar, but they definitely have their own distinct differences. And, just being around an accountant and thinking about money and accounting just helps fine-tune those abilities and that side of work. I believe having a good accountant and a good attorney on your team is crucial to having a solid, successful business on the business side of things. There are a lot of things to consider when starting a budget, especially at the beginning. I've learned a lot about budgets, but budgets are always fluid. You do have to start somewhere, and it's great if you can stick to the budget, but changes always do come up where you might have to cut back on spending, or cut back on profits, or cut back on your income, or those things just aren't fun, but that sometimes is the reality of business. But knowing your fixed costs and non-fixed costs can help. Fixed costs can be monthly, quarterly, or annually. They can be things like rent, utilities, software services, excuse me, payroll fees, website fees, compliance fees, professional fees, and more. Then there are non-fixed costs such as meals and entertainment, apparel, supplies, advertising, travel, or more. Having a budget with numbers and allocations can help with decision making and keep the money flowing for your business. Your accountant can help create one if you don't know where to start. Payment collection. Another consideration is how payments will be collected. Are you going to do cash or check only? Using cash or check is the least expensive way, as there are no fees associated with transactions. What do I mean by that? When you use a credit card processing, or you want to run credit cards, there is a fee for that company or for that transaction. Sometimes it's a fixed amount. Sometimes it depends if you're using a credit card or a debit card, whether the card's present or not, and those can all incur different fees. Those fees a lot of times are about security. If a card is not present, then you have a higher security risk. Maybe that card is stolen or something like that. So the processing company has a higher liability. So, but with cash or check, there aren't any fees. We live in a society today where people like to use their credit cards. And so if you decide to do cash or check, you need to clearly communicate that with your patient or client base. I personally believe that it kind of makes you more of a legitimate company if you accept credit cards. You can factor that into your pricing or your rates of the business to accommodate for those fees. If you are going to accept health savings account or flex spending account money, then you will want the ability to process credit cards. There are several credit card processing vendors available, and I will recommend to do your research and choose the option that is best for you. We might be starting a business for several reasons, but one of them is most likely to make money. So how are you going to pay yourself? If you have employees or independent contractors working with you, how are you going to pay them? Will you pay them hourly, salary, commission, or a combination of these options? If you are self-employed or in a sole proprietor, partner, or an LLC, you will make distribution payments to yourself on a regular basis or whenever you and your accountant decide is the best. If you're an S Corp or a C Corp, you can run payroll for yourself. So you would become an employee and then you would have to payroll. So you would have to run payroll. If you have employees, you will also need to run payroll. Find and use a payroll company that will cover the state, federal, and local taxes, as well as tax filings for you. There are quarterly tax filings for federal and state that need to go out, and just paying a company to do that for you that are the experts will save you a lot of time and a headache or two. If you have an independent contractor, they are responsible for the taxes on their own. So you will just pay them their gross amount earned and they will do the rest. A business coach once defined marketing to me as telling your story. That helps me feel comfortable with marketing. All I have to do is tell the story of my company. Great, I can manage that. Now, though that is simple, it is still very important to tell the story consistently and in a manner that is precise and easy to understand to the layperson. So once you have the perfect story, how do you get it to your target client base? One way is a website. Then you have social media, elevator pitch, and networking. To me, you need to create a story. And so you want a 30-second crisp elevator pitch that is compelling. You also might need slight variations on your elevator pitch because you need to tell your story to a health professional who knows what an athletic trainer is. Maybe you need to tell your story to a health professional who does not know what an athletic trainer is. Maybe you're telling your story to a fellow business owner that you want to partner with, whether that's from a referral basis or maybe they're going to buy into your business, versus a potential client. So those, to me, are all 4 different examples of an elevator pitch. And then networking. That's, to me, a great way to build your client base. So it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so what opportunities do you have that can help grow your network, that will help grow your business in turn? You might network through health or wellness events, sporting competitions, job fairs, church functions, festivals, joining a local chamber of commerce or other professional networking group of small business owners. A lot of times they're there to refer other business to you. So those are just different ways to network. I think forming your elevator pitch and forming your story, here are some questions to consider when you do that. Why was your company formed? What was your passion behind it? What gap did you see in the market? What role will the company play in healthcare? Who will the company help? What qualifications and experiences do you have? And like I said, this should be about 30 seconds. If you write it out, it might be a longer paragraph, but it needs to be about you and your company and why you started your company and the company's mission and vision statements in a nutshell. And then you want to make it sound pretty short, concise. You want the layperson to be able to understand it. And you really want to be able to memorize it. So standing in front of a mirror, talking to your significant other can all really help create a crisp elevator pitch and story. Advertising. Once you have your perfect story, how do you get that to your target client base? So we have a website. I would say hire a website developer. If you have time and you're artistic, you can try your hand at designing a website. I think making a Google business listing as well as a Yelp business listing. If you have developed some relationships with other professional people and that have websites, you can ask to support each other by putting each other's websites on your own websites. I think social media is important, having a Facebook page where people can come to you, or you can run advertising deals on there or options. Maybe an Instagram page, a Twitter account, a LinkedIn account, YouTube account. These are all methods and means to tell your story. And they do take time. So if you don't have the time, maybe you consider hiring an advertising or social media person. Then you also have your elevator pitch, which we just discussed a lot, and then networking as well. Because you can have other people advertise you that you have connected with. So our last section is providing healthcare. So when you are providing your care, or before you begin providing care, here are some considerations. We have compliance, additional certifications, customer service, EMR, supplies, and follow-up. Compliance. Are you compliant with HIPAA, OSHA, and your state's OSHA? I didn't know this, but each state typically has their own OSHA, and making sure the differences or making sure that you're compliant with that is important. We've already talked about State Practice Act, but that is something also you should be compliant with. You can visit each of these websites to learn what steps you need to take to ensure compliance. There are companies who also specialize in this, so if you want, you can have a company help ensure compliance. Or again, you can always run things by your attorney to make sure all of that stuff is good. But I believe taking steps before you start the company and the business for compliance is better to do than waiting till later. Are there additional certifications or training courses required, or maybe you desire to do them before you begin providing care? If it's not required, but it's desired, I recommend setting a goal as to when you can take the course. Customer service. I have a few sayings. You see the first one is people buy from people they like and trust. Then we're going to talk about bedside manner and referral sources. In a cash-based business and a small business, customer service is a must. Excellent customer service provides positive experiences. Positive experiences lead to repeat customers and referrals. People buy from people they like and trust. Memorize that saying. It is crucial to your success. And remember to give me credit for when you use it. Kidding. We know bedside manner as healthcare professionals, and I think it's a very similar way, or a good way, to transition into providing good customer service. In a typical athletic training setting, we provide care to the athlete and help them through the healing process. We spend time with them, we check in with them, and we show that we care. And I believe that is the same thing in the business setting. We're showing that the clients care, or that we care about our clients. We're spending time with them, and we're doing that so they have a good experiences, and we provide care. But in a business setting, these clients, I believe, can become your best referral sources. So if we're providing good care to them and good customer service and creating positive experiences, they will go tell other people about the business and the type of care that your company provided. And that can be a positive experience. If we don't have good customer service, the clients or patients we serve also have the power to leave us bad reviews and not come back, and could potentially have a negative impact on your business. So every client is an opportunity to provide a great experience and an opportunity to gain new clients from them. Providing good customer service is a very important aspect of your business. Medical records. We have to take notes even if we are not submitting them to insurance. Our clients need records of when we saw them, how they were doing when we saw them, their condition, and what we did for them. How are you going to keep track of your notes and keep them secure? Sure, you could do it by pencil and paper and lock them up somewhere. Or you can utilize software programs for your computer or online HIPAA compliant programs. There are a lot of programs to choose from, so I will just give you or wish you good luck in selecting one that works best for you. A quick Google search will help a lot of times with that. There are supplies that are going to probably be needed. These supplies are fixed, continuous, and I will also talk about an inventory list. So the supplies that are fixed will probably only need to be ordered one time or only once in a while. These are things like a table, office furniture, marketing supplies like a banner, a printer, computer, TINS unit. You get the idea. There should also be an inventory list of these supplies, just so you know how many, what you paid for them, because those things can be written off on your taxes. And then there are supplies that are also continuous. These supplies are cleaning supplies, treatment supplies, printer ink, paper, and more. Maybe t-shirts or things like that. I also think it's important to have a list of these things so you can keep an inventory on them and you know when you need to order more. And the final thing is to talk about follow-up. There is so much power in follow-up. I believe that a lot of people don't do follow-up anymore, or they do and maybe they don't put a lot of effort into it, but there's so much power in follow-up. Kind of like their customer service is important. This is, to me, is just a subset of customer service. I cannot stress follow-up enough. An example, a bad example, or an example of poor follow-up is I have a client who recently expressed to me how the doctors that this person has had to see, they don't follow up like I do. They don't check in after I try a new technique, or after they try a new technique or their first appointment. And even though they provide a certain service, and that those healthcare providers provide the services that are needed, so people go to them because they're needed, to my client, it was very, very neat that I actually took the time and continue to take the time after years to check in with them to see how they're doing after treatment, or after they just had a bad day, or after they tell me something personal and I check in on them after a work presentation or something. So that's why because follow-up also creates new referrals or continued referrals, or it creates that trust, and people buy from people they like and trust. And so if we're doing good things to create more likability and trustworthiness, then we're getting a loyal client, and that is very important. I even think it's important to follow up with people if they leave you a bad review. If they're leaving you a bad review and you don't ever call them or able to reach out to them, then maybe you don't know why. Maybe they just had a bad day, or maybe you forgot to tell them that they were going to be sore after an appointment, or the pricing changed and you forgot to tell them, and so you needed to follow up and resolve that issue with them. I also think it's important to follow up with people if a friend or a client gives you a phone number of someone to call. Calling that person and letting know that person, that friend or client, hey, I called them and I was able to talk with them. I think that's also really important. And these are small things that go by the wayside anymore. And I just have learned that making people feel cared for goes a really long way. And athletic trainers are excellent at caring. So just remember follow-up. I really do believe it is very important, and that you should not get too busy for follow-up. that concludes my presentation. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this today. This is all information that I feel like I had to research, interpret, create sometimes with my attorney or accountant, learn and apply on my own, or with the help of others. This is a newer path in our profession, and I want to help provide direction and insight to the fellow AT who has a passion or an idea to become an entrepreneur. I've had ups and downs in the 6 years that I've owned a business, and I count all of them as blessings and lessons. I've learned so much, and I am always learning more about my professional skills and business skills. I've made mistakes, and I'm sure I will make more, but the passion I have allows me to keep going. I encourage you to find that passion, and if you have found it, tap into it. Feel free to reach out to me via email if you have any questions, and we can talk, and if I can't help or answer your questions, I will be able to point you in the right direction. You can always learn more online. Try to use government websites as much as possible and reputable websites for what you can't find on government websites. I wish you the best of luck in your entrepreneur journey.